Hello and welcome to the state of Kentucky. I'm Bruce Maples, the publisher of Forward Kentucky. We're glad to have you with us today. If you're watching live, let me remind you that you can comment on Facebook or YouTube, and if we will see the comments, we might share them on the screen. It's always interesting to me to watch elections. I mean, I'm a politics junkie, among other things. And so watching elections happen and form and change is always interesting. And sometimes you have a candidate who sort of catches lightning in a bottle. And what looked to be, a nice campaign suddenly takes off and becomes a hot campaign. And then if that person doesn't win, you want to know, well, okay, what's next for them? What might they do with this? And so we've got a gentleman with us today that fits that description. Had an amazing campaign in the spring for U.S. Senate candidate, came close, didn't quite get there, and now it's, okay, what's next? So Charles Booker, Representative Charles Booker, welcome to the state of Kentucky.
Thank you, brother. It's good to be with you.
It is good to have you. I'm just really excited to have you on here. I've got a whole list of things that I want to talk about.
All right.
But first of all, let's just get the personal stuff down. How are you doing?
I'm doing well considering all things. That's the way I say it nowadays, because there's so much going on in my city, in the city of Louisville, and across the Commonwealth, across the country. My legislative office is essentially an unemployment office. A lot of people are struggling, and I'm taking all of that in. But I get up every day ready for the fight, ready to serve the people of Kentucky, and I'm honored to do my part.
So, as I said, your campaign sort of caught lightning in the bottle, and the spring just took off. How was that? What did that feel like as the candidate?
It was really indescribable. It was one of those moments that you read about, and if you look through the channels of history, you'll find stories that remind you of what we tapped into. Mm-hmm. And, as I was traveling Kentucky, I would often say that we could tell we were bending the arc of history, her story, their story, our story. We were writing a new chapter. We were inspiring something different. We were telling a new story, and it was really humbling. I come from the hood in west end of Louisville, my background, and, I don't come from politics. In my community, we're often ignored. And we tapped into that truth because a lot of Kentuckians feel that way.
Yeah.
And to see it break through, because, I come from an organizing background. I've been a staffer for everybody, worked at every level of government, really just trying to find my way into these spaces to see how they can really work for people.
Yeah.
And so we were building throughout the primary, even though the media were blocking it out, and, a lot of folks were framing it as if there wasn't a primary, and we were doing the work anyway. And to see it break through and to see the whole country converge on the story of folks in Appalachia that have been abandoned, that are fighting back, people in communities like mine that are rising up and even banging on the doors to get in the vote, saying that we're going to take our power back. It was incredible. And although the primary didn't go in my favor, that was a victory for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And I'm fighting to keep that going, which is why I launched Hood to the Holler as an organization, the rallying cry from our campaign.
So you're in politics, so you're used to saying no comment if you need to. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that might be outside the comfort space.
Go for it.
When you first announced, there were 2 or 3 of us who were sort of talking about it, and the consensus among the group that I was speaking with was, why did he do this? I mean, he could have had that seat in the House forever, as long as he wanted it. A few years, he could probably run for state Senate, and a few years after that, he might run for, U.S. Senate, U.S. House. He might take John Yarmouth's place once John decided not to run anymore. Why did you step away from all of that and decide to take on this race at this time?
Yeah, first of all, you know about me, I always shoot it straight. That was something I prayed about, because it was very clear to me that, my mentors, folks around me were saying, look, Charles, you're on a bright path. You could potentially go into leadership in the state house. If you built this out, you can have a long career in politics. If you run for reelection, you probably won't be opposed. And, for me, the reason that I decided to run for U.S. Senate is the reason I got into politics. It really is out of survival. I'm not a politician. I've studied it. I embrace the power that it has or that it can have. But I don't show up in these spaces to build a career.
Mm.
I got a sense of urgency, Bruce, because the last 4 years I've had 5 cousins murdered, and I'm always thinking about what can I do right now to fight for change right now. And what we were seeing in the State House was really incredible. Now, you got to remember, teachers were showing up, public employees were showing up, flooding the Capitol building, rocking the rotunda. I mean, it was electric. And you're seeing minors in Harlan County, standing on the track saying we're not going to be exploited and ran over, taken for granted. Small farmers speaking up, student activists speaking up. And in my mind, it was clear that if we charted the course forward on our common bonds across urban and rural divides, across racial divides, across class, that we can transform our politics. And so for me, it was a matter of, well, how do we do that? And my granddad, Sergeant Lindsey Hearn Sr., always told me, if you see a challenge, don't run from it, run to it.
Mm.
And, I prayed, how can I best be an asset? And I realized that if we mounted this fight against the most powerful Republican in the country and told this story about what really is at the forefront in Kentucky, what's really on the precipice, the movement that's happening, we could build infrastructure that would take years to do if I just stayed in the House trying to protect my career. So that seat didn't belong to me. It's the people's seat, and the choice was really easy. The last thing I'll say is everything I do is directed by my faith. Whenever I have a plan, God laughs at it. And it was put in my spirit to take this stand. And, I've learned the hard way to be obedient. And so I made the run, and, what came out of it was so incredible. The Commonwealth needed it, and we're not done. So and I'm proud to have proved a lot of folks that were questioning and doubting, excited to prove them wrong. And, we're building the momentum even now.
So I want to get back to, obviously, I want to talk about the hood to the holler. But I want to ask you a couple more questions about the campaign. When you announced, did you get, you said what your mentors were saying. Did you get phone calls from DC? Did people call you up and say, please don't do this or anything like that?
No, I didn't get a call from DC. Now, I worked for Congressman Yarmouth. I worked for Congressman Gregory Meeks out of New York. And I understood that there was an intent, at least from the DSCC, to try to clear the field.
Yeah.
But no one called me and told me don't run. And it wouldn't have mattered if they did, because I wasn't running for them.
Yeah.
And as much as, my mentors in politics were sort of seeing the conventional route, for me, and the conventional nature of, look, this is Mitch McConnell. He's an institution. He has a whole lot of money. You don't have any money.
Right.
You're a young Black guy. This is Kentucky. As much as all of those conventional narratives came into play, I'll tell you this. I was a director of Fish and Wildlife, as you may recall. I've been all over Kentucky. I knew the people of Kentucky were ready. And so it didn't matter what, outside folks thought about it. This was about Kentucky.
One last question about the campaign. And I realize you can't necessarily share private conversations, but have you talked to Amy McGrath, and have y'all consolidated message, or have you helped her move on positions or anything like that?
Well, I reached out to Amy right after the primary.
Mm-hmm.
And, my message to her and her team was, we have to come together if we really want to beat Mitch McConnell. you know, what we tapped into in my campaign is something that can't be ignored. And there's a lot of folks that are excited that turned out to vote that hadn't voted before.
Right.
Let's work together to keep them activated and run a turnout model and crush Mitch McConnell. And you know, we've had dialogues back and forth. We agree on a lot of things, but on the bold policy visions, we see things differently, and that's okay. And you know, I offered my endorsement for her. Understand we have to beat Mitch McConnell, but here's the thing again, that you know, I don't come from politics, and what I told her is the same thing I tell everyone, is that I don't BS. I really want things to change in Kentucky. I want poverty to end in Kentucky. This isn't just about beating Mitch. It's about getting rid of him and then doing the hard work. And, you know, so I hope that they continue to engage and take me up on that offer to really dig in with the people of Kentucky, not just about turning Mitch down. We all know he's terrible. We got to do that part.
Right.
But we got to tell the other story. Like, why is this important for people in Kentucky to vote when so many people have checked out and given up, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's ongoing, you know, and I can tell now they're changing leadership in the campaign, that, you know, they're showing an ear to hear. And, you know, I look forward to us being able to join forces more and more to get Mitch out of there.
Are you campaigning for any? Are you out in for?
You know, I have not been out across Kentucky, honestly, since the primary, in large reason because of health concerns. And, you know, I'm a type 1 diabetic.
Right.
And, you know, I've been building this organization, Hood to the Holler, that will be a big organizing tool for Kentucky, not for any one particular race, but in general, you know, because we got work to do at the state level too. So, you know, several of people on my team have gone over to work with her campaign. And, you know, I see that they're showing up more now. And so, you know, I look forward to the chance to be able to show up together. It just has to be authentic, and we got to speak to the real issues. And so I'm pushing for that.
Well, let's move on to Hood to the Holler. That was sort of a, you know, part of your campaign theme, which frankly, I have to tell you, I thought was brilliant. I thought it was a great theme. But now it's an organization. So what are you trying to do with this new organization?
Well, you know, simply, we got to keep the momentum going. You know, the thing that inspired me to run for U.S. Senate, beyond the idea of beating Mitch McConnell, because anyone that knows anything about politics knows that that's a long shot.
Yeah.
I believe that building a movement and igniting it is the only way to do it. But the thing that gave me peace about running that race was that we could build infrastructure, that we could train new organizers, that we can mobilize new people across Kentucky in the forgotten places, is how I refer to it. And so Hood to the Holler was a rallying cry from the campaign. And now we're calling that the name of the organization because we got to keep that going. So in short, we're going to be training folks to be citizen lobbyists.
Okay.
Training people to be organizers. Relational organizing is a powerful way that we were able to run our campaign, even in the face of the most well-funded Senate primary in our history. And we want to train people to do that. We want to help folks to pursue boards, commissions, run for office, creating a fellowship. Essentially, I want to give all my tricks away. You know, I've sort of infiltrated my way into all these spaces in government.
Right.
I want to tell those secrets to the people of Kentucky and across the country so that more regular folks can be in the room. And what we're doing right now, the through line for all of our work is the same thing in my campaign: ending poverty and uprooting structural racism. And we do that by telling a new story, and I'm calling it a new Southern strategy on how we can engage issues connected to our common bonds, and instead of seeing them as wedges that keep us divided. And if we can do that, as we proved, where we were talking about a Green New Deal in Eastern Kentucky, we were talking about structural racism all across the Commonwealth, universal basic income, reparations. We were having these hard conversations, and the way you can do it is by speaking to common bonds. And so we want to help elevate that truth. This month, we've launched the effort focused on breaking down barriers to democracy, which is central to everything I do. We're going to register 50,000 Kentuckians. We're already doing that. That's already happening. Focusing on formerly incarcerated individuals who got their rights restored with Governor Beshear's executive order.
Right.
You know, I was the lead sponsor on that bill for restoration of voting rights. And so we got our hands full, our work cut out, but this is about activating people so that they can go be the leaders of right now and tomorrow. And I'm just proud, man. I'm proud that we can do this because this is bigger than any one election. This is about the future of Kentucky, and I'm fired up about it. And so the website is hoodtotheholler.org. I know you were already going to share it, but we want everyone to connect with this. It's not about partisan politics. No time for that. It's about the people.
Let me make a real quick. Wait a minute. Hoodtotheholler.org. Right? Okay, so is this correct?
That's it.
All right, we'll share that a couple of times then. So let me throw a banner up just to remind people, if you have suggestions, send them to tips@forwardkentucky.com. And if you like the work we're doing, become a member. And one more time, if you comment, we'll share them. So we've already had a couple of comments here in the stream. Joni Prentice saying, we're not done, more good trouble to get into.
That's right.
It sounds like a plan to me. So how well does your message resonate in Eastern Kentucky? I mean, you're talking about these, people in Appalachia who are both struggling economically and really usually not too engaged politically. They've just given up on the system.
Yeah.
So how does that work out there? Do you have people out there working with you, and does the message work?
First of all, yes, absolutely. And, we were able to build a network of close to 3,000 volunteers across Kentucky. Many of them in Appalachia, far west Kentucky, parts of the Commonwealth where folks were saying, hey, Charles, you're a young Black guy. They're not going to vote for you there. The truth of the matter is my message, which is about family. It's about overcoming the impossible. It's about leading the way forward and not waiting for others to do for you. But it's also about demanding real change. I was able to humanize a lot of issues that have been treated as wedges.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a supporter of Medicare for all, not because it's a political talking point, but because I nearly died because I couldn't afford my insulin.
Right.
And when you tell those stories from a very personal place, it sort of breaks down those walls of division, and we start to see, okay, wait, I understand what he's saying. And there's a reality here. So I'm talking to you from the Russell neighborhood in Louisville, 40203, which has for years been the poorest zip code in the state. Mm-hmm. We are dealing with the brunt of gentrification now, and people are being pushed out. And so the demographics are changing, but our unemployment has been close to 30% for years. Our internet is crap. If you're using public transportation, it can take you a couple of hours to get to the hospital, to get to resources you need. A lot of homelessness. We're criminalized because, we criminalize poverty across the country and certainly here in Kentucky. And so when I would tell my story, man, you could essentially pick up my lived experience and put it in Appalachia. And honestly, there are parts in my neighborhood that you would swear are in Appalachia. And so it was really a matter of just shining a light, and talking about, not saying that I've walked in anybody else's shoes, but saying that I know what it feels like, to feel invisible, to feel ignored and abandoned. And that message is really populist in nature too, about prioritizing people. And I think it's something Trump tapped into, although he was exploiting folks. And so, yeah, man, it caught fire because people were demanding it. They were calling for it. And we got to lean into that. We cannot put that on the shelf and just play politics as usual.
Have you, in terms of your organization, have you had any conversations with other organizations about partnerships or about doing initiatives together? I mean, it seems to me like you certainly align to some extent with KFTC and Apple Red and a couple of other organizations, not to mention, political parties. But what kind of conversations have you had?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing a joint event with KFTC coming up. Part of initiative with CAVE is part of the table here in Kentucky, which is a lot of social justice related organizations. working with the People's Campaign. I've built a lot of coalitions over the years with Fairness, ACLU, um, Black Lives Matter, the Kentucky Alliance Against Racial Political Repression, um, the Urban and Rural Exchange. El Surge. So here's the power. We're not looking to recreate programming because there's a lot of good work that's happening across
Right.
Kentucky. The void that I want to feel, coming from a place that has been ignored or talked at, we're treated as statistics. Nobody ever listens to us. I want to lift up the voices of people to plug into the work that exists. So we're able to activate folks, as we did in the campaign, to say, okay, Kentucky's for the Commonwealth, you're incredible. As you show up in communities across Kentucky, we can help activate more people to plug into that great work that you're doing. Because again, the change can't happen without the communities most affected, that are most marginalized.
Right.
We got to go after them, and we got to empower and uplift them. And I represent that. So, we're building a big collaborative effort. A lot of organizations across Kentucky are already fired up because they see that we can help plug in and boost what they're doing. And let's be clear here. We want to train leaders that can plug into what exists.
Yeah.
But we also want to give them the tools to build something new, and that's the chance we have now. We can pilot a lot of initiatives across Kentucky to help tell this story. We're going to use a lot of creative energy to do that. Art, music. We're telling a new story about Kentucky, and we're going to prove the doubters wrong. We are not merely a red state. We are not a joke. We're not a tragedy. We are hardworking, dedicated people, and we're taking our power back.
I have to give you a compliment. You now, in one interview, have thrown out a second theme that I love and want to adopt, a new Southern strategy. I think that's a great line and a great phrase. We're with Representative Charles Booker, founder of Hood to the Holler, and we're going to throw a commercial on the screen for about 20 seconds, and then we'll be right back. We're here with Representative Charles Booker talking about his campaign, about Hood to the Holler, and maybe a couple more questions that we haven't talked about yet. So let me ask you this. If somebody wants to get involved in Hood to the Holler, how would they do that?
So there's a couple of ways. One, I appreciate you sharing the website. So it is hoodtotheholler.org. I love the fact that we get to call it that. It's such a powerful thing. You can go there. We are doing trainings right now for digital organizers. No matter what your comfort level is, your level of expertise, we can give you the tools to have an impact right now, especially helping us register and engage the voters and people across Kentucky. You can also follow on social media. All of my social media handles are Hood to the Holler, so at Hood to the Holler. Right. And of course, you can follow me directly, Booker4KY on all my social media. We're telling the story, so let's get connected.
Good deal. So let's step out of that for a moment. Let me ask you a couple of other questions. You are still a representative, a state representative, and there's obviously a lot of stuff going on in Frankfurt around COVID. Are you hearing anything about a special session?
So we have been having meetings over the last couple of days, including yesterday, about that very thing. And I know there is interest to take some immediate action, both as it relates to COVID-19, but also
Mhm.
as it relates to a lot of the pain and frustration that communities are feeling, certainly here in Louisville, with the killing of Breonna Taylor and the cries for justice and more accountability. I'm a co-sponsor on the bill to ban no-knock warrants. So conversations are underway now. You know, we all understand the cost of a special session
Right.
and the logistics of pulling that off, especially as we head into the general election. So I'm not sure if it's actually going to happen, but I do know a lot of voices are coming together to say we need to do something right now,
Right.
and I agree with that.
Okay. And my next to last question is one that I'm sure everybody wants to ask you, and you're probably tired of answering. And that is, are you going to run for office again?
You know, I will say it plain. I do believe that I have more running to do.
Okay.
I would like to be very specific on what that means right now, but I'm honestly giving that to God, man. I never thought I'd run for U.S. Senate, and as I'm talking to you, I'm telling you, this was not on my radar. But it's one of those things where, if you are a leader, you answer the call, you know, and I'm evaluating what that means for me. We've built some statewide infrastructure. We increased turnout in ways that folks hadn't seen since President Obama in 2008, and even
Right.
beyond that. And you know, 2022 is like tomorrow, and so I'm
Yes.
praying on what all this means for me. So, you know, I'll be coming back to tell you more about it, man. But I know
Right.
I'm not done. That's for sure.
Well, you know that I'm going to ask you to promise me that when
I
you're
know it.
ready to do something, you're going to let me know.
I know it, man.
We would love to have an exclusive on that. You know that. Okay, so my last question is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had asked you?
Um, you know, I think it's very timely to talk about Breonna Taylor and the
Hmm.
bigger conversation about what's happening across Kentucky. And
Okay.
that was a theme throughout a lot of what I was saying, though. But, you know, I think one point that I'd love to elevate with your platform here is that we're in a moment where we have to cast a vision forward. Uh, you know, we have to have the hard conversations. We got to talk about poverty that's generational. We have to talk about gross inequity.
Hmm.
We have to talk about racism. We got to wrap our arms around this stuff. And I think it took a jarring, traumatic incident, like having a young woman have her door kicked in the dead of night, being killed by the agency that she paid for to protect and serve her while she was doing her part to serve the community.
Right.
I think it took that type of a unique story to help everybody see themselves in it, you know. And my hope now is just for the people of Kentucky that we stay resolved, that we keep coming together, and we keep fighting not just for justice and accountability for Breonna specifically, but for all of us. And you know, I just want to drive that message because I know these are tough times, man. And so I appreciate you, the work you do. I appreciate this platform, and let's just keep fighting the good fight together.
We want to do that. And that includes having the hard conversations and finding, um, I don't want to say partners, although that might be the right word, finding people who will stand with you that you wouldn't have expected. Maybe that's the way to put it.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't ask you about Breonna Taylor, not that I feel like I have to explain, but I don't want to feel like every black person who's on our show gets asked and white people don't. So I didn't want to put that in that box.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by the changes. Um, I mean, there's not a lot anymore that shocks me in the political world. But
Hmm.
seeing Robert Stivers come forward with a bill or talk about coming forward with a bill about no-knock warrants, I just kind of went, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that Reginald Meeks made a good point yesterday, which is that you know, we've had conversations, the Black Legislative Caucus have had conversations with the governor, but we haven't been called yet by the leadership. And I hope that the leadership in the legislature sees that and says, oh, well, yeah, we need to do that.
Yeah.
What do you, okay, I want to chase this one more minute. The Breonna Taylor story, obviously it still resonates. But as you're working on Hood to the Holler and you're talking to people across the state, has it turned into a Louisville story, or is it still resonating out across the state with other people?
You know, it still resonates. And I've seen an intent lately to try to frame these issues as Louisville specific, and to be very blunt and blatant. This plays into the narrative that our current president has been pushing to try to keep folks divided and say that these are the challenges in cities that are run by Democrats. And, you know, and I've even seen some of that from, you know, my Republican colleagues as well, saying that Louisville is a war zone and a rampage area, right, and all that stuff that is so far disrespectfully far from the truth. But overall, the fact is still remaining for the majority of people across Kentucky and across the country, that they're seeing themselves in this moment, and they're being introspective. You know, they're looking around and saying, okay, we know things aren't right. We know that the injustice that she faced could easily happen to me, because think about it. Her door was kicked in. They shouldn't have even been there. That could have been anybody.
Right.
You know? And I think we got to keep reminding ourselves of the big picture. And even I even say it. I said it during the campaign. When we say Breonna Taylor's name, it's not even just about her anymore. It's about us. You know, it's about the challenges we face: access to housing, economic opportunities,
right,
food insecurity, crumbling infrastructure, all the things that allow for these types of environments to even exist to begin with. And so we're focused on the big picture work, and that's another reason why Hood to the Holler is so important to me.
Excellent. Representative Charles Booker, one of my absolute favorite people in the world. Whenever you decide to do something, you let us know. And I'm not just talking about running. I hope you will keep us informed on Hood to the Holler. If you've got press releases or stories you want to share, we'd love to have them. And I encourage everybody, let me put it up one more time. I encourage everybody to go to Hood to the Holler and sign up to support and to be informed. And Charles Booker, thank you so much for being on the State of Kentucky.
As always, thank you, brother.
We appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
That was Representative Charles Booker, former candidate for U.S. Senate, current representative to the Kentucky State House, and founder of hoodtotheholler.org, an organization making change. We thank you for being with us today. You can watch this later on Facebook or YouTube, and if you do, we welcome you to do that. It'll also be up on our site later this evening. And again, come back and see us again next week at noon for the State of Kentucky.